Welcome to episode 17 of the St. Charles podcast. I'm Eric Wood,
Father Mark Brown.
and we are here to talk about the global Anglican communion,
Yes.
which is something all over the news. And Father, I did a deep dive into this topic in the last 48 hours, and it is fascinating. So, according to everything from Anglican Inc. to Living Word to all these different sources, we have a meeting in Australia before this document is released where the Archbishop of Rwanda, Nigeria, and different players from North America and Sydney, including a very highly regarded 92-year-old retired bishop who was the original head of GAFCON.
Okay.
And the decision is made that the Rubicon has been crossed with the new Archbishop being appointed, and it is time for GAFCON to form the Global Anglican Communion. And then it gets a little bit murkier, where there's an email that goes out to every GAFCON primate and a conference call. And it looks like not every primate was on the call, but everyone that was, which adds up to like 8, I believe, said, yes, let's go forward with this. And now you have 4 to 5 primates that we don't really hear much about. And it looks like all eyes are on Kenya. Yeah. And in Kenya, there's a story where one bishop has come out saying this has the potential, if we go along with GAFCON, of creating 2 provinces within Kenya.
Right.
Because there is some deep-seated loyalty to the See of Canterbury that they're uncomfortable, at least in some quarters, breaking off from. And that is really like the bellwether of what happens next, is where does Kenya go? If Kenya goes with Nigeria, Rwanda, and Uganda, then you might have a cascading effect where it truly is the global Anglican communion isolating Canterbury. But it could go the other way.
It could. I mean, what we have to also realize is over the decades, Canterbury and the Episcopal Church in America have dumped tens of millions of dollars into these poor African parishes.
That's right, like South Sudan.
South
as a province,
Sudan,
so much
right.
money comes in that they need.
They need it. But when they give you the money, there's hooks.
That's right.
You gotta be for women's ordination. You gotta push LGBTQ+. You gotta be so all these heresies are attached to that money.
And we don't have as much money. And my
No.
understanding in the conservative, whether that be realignment or continuing sphere, Rwanda is the one church that got a lot of money from the more conservative sphere. And we don't have as much money to give everybody what was given to Rwanda, basically.
Well, don't, because in America, a lot of endowments went to the Episcopal Church. They're sitting on something like over $1 billion.
Yeah.
Well, then look at the Church of England. Go back, 21 centuries, 20 centuries. The institutional money they have.
They're very wealthy. They're not startups.
They're not startups. They're very wealthy. They have nobody in the pews, but they're very wealthy. That's what's keeping the Church of England alive. That's what's keeping the Episcopal Church alive.
Even individual parishes. There's 6-figure trust money that comes in that's built into their budgets on any given year.
Right.
That we just don't have that.
We don't have that yet. And eventually, maybe in 100, 200 years, we will. But right now, the heretics can throw their weight around because they have the money to do it. And then you have starving Anglican churches that some will kind of turn the other way, hold their nose, take the money, and they find willing bishops to accept heresy so they have some money to build a church or feed some people. But then that's like letting a cancer in. You let your parasite in. If you don't get rid of the parasite, what happens? It eventually takes over the host and kills it.
Well, it's fascinating. We'll either have a unified GAFCON front or we won't.
Right.
But as that applies to us sitting here in Huntsville at St. Charles as a parish in the Anglican province of Christ the King, how does this impact us? Well, I think the way it can impact us is the decision of whether or not to say this is a seismic sea change in the world of Anglicanism.
Right.
Father, I did a deep dive into one of our formative documents last night, which is the Affirmation of St. Louis. Yes. And here is what I uncovered. In the affirmation, it says, and I quote, I just had it. Let me find this. We affirm our continued relations of communion with the See of Canterbury and all faithful parts of the Anglican communion.
Right.
Okay, now my understanding is Canterbury in the 70s did not return that reciprocity,
Nope.
and these other faithful parts of the Anglican Communion did not return that reciprocity.
No.
But my understanding is we've never unextended that hand,
No.
and now we have an event occurring within the Anglican Communion where large, influential parts of this, Nigeria, Rwanda, are saying we're out, and we might have more.
Yeah.
And what does that mean for us now, where these people hold to the Jerusalem Declaration? We hold to the affirmation of St. Louis. Well, I've studied them, and I don't find any incompatibility, Father. I see that the affirmation goes farther,
Yeah.
but everything you see in the Jerusalem Declaration, you also see the inerrancy of Scriptures.
Right.
They say 4 councils, we say 7, but everything that is required of the Jerusalem Declaration, we already hold to.
Right. Well, the problem, the issue is interpretation. Back in August, I think it was August, Archbishop Haviland of the ACC sent out a little email online, and then he went off to South America, breaking communion between the Anglican Catholic Church and the United Episcopal Church of North America.
The UECNA.
UECNA, Bishop Robinson. Now, what's the difference between
And that's
them?
another continuing body
I mean-
that goes back to Bishop Chambers and
Right.
one of the 4 bishops that he consecrated.
Yeah, the only difference is that they are more what we would call low church, more Reformation type Anglicans.
But literally the same history.
They affirmed the affirmation of St. Louis. Okay, I mean, just prior to the Archbishop of the Anglican Catholic Church issuing that, the presiding bishop, Bishop Robinson, put out. Well, actually, I watched him talking to one of his priests on a podcast, and they are affirming the affirmation of St. Louis. But to Haviland's mind, they didn't affirm it enough. So that's the problem. Are we going to be such a pure church that you have to affirm everything I believe to the degree I believe it? So that could be a hang-up with the continuing churches going with GAFCON.
Here's what I think they would say, is the affirmation also says this. So after we affirm our continued relations with the communion with the See of Canterbury and faithful parts of the Anglican Communion, it also says this: we do not accept the authority of those bishops and other clergy who have departed from the faith once delivered to the saints. Okay, so what do you do with the bishop or any bishop in, say, Nigeria that has never consecrated a female priest, in a jurisdiction that's never had females in its bishop line, but might have had female deacons?
Yeah.
Does that mean they're no longer...
Faithful?
Yeah, is that what that would mean? That, okay, well, we don't want to be part of this because of that?
Well, that was one of the reasons why you saw the letters when the ACNA was being formed. You go back and you look at the letters Haviland wrote and all those other. One of the things they talked about was female deacons.
Yeah.
So they refused. I mean, you can go back and look at Virtue Online. David Virtue did an interview with Bishop Grote, who of blessed memory, the Reformed Episcopal Church, because of an incident that happened back in 2010. I was in the UECNA. I was a deacon, and my priest and my bishop, Bishop Knowlton, they asked then the Archbishop Reber, "What do we do with the ACNA?" Our people are asking. Well, we all got out. You're gone. Don't even talk about the ACNA. I mean, I remember sitting on my front porch getting a phone call. We're out. I mean, what do you mean? You know, having that conversation with my priest.
Because there's not even the Anglo-Catholic distinction there
No.
on that side to be able to say we shouldn't
But they
align with
don't.
this.
They have a history in the continuing church of being suspicious, not working, and if you're not as pure as I am, we're not going to work together. They've had so many inter communion agreements since the 70s, and they've all been broken for some silly, stupid reason. You don't affirm the affirmation of St. Louis as much as I do. You know, they even had. Well, there's a priest. There was a UECNA priest in the ACC parish. How did the presiding Bishop Robinson find out? Guys like me sending him emails going, "Hey, what does this mean?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?"
Felt bad for the priest that found out that way too.
Yeah.
What does this mean for me and my parish?
Me and my parish.
Whoa.
You know, okay. It would be like if Haviland wrote that letter to Schultz, Archbishop Schultz. Well, what about the priest in Washington, D.C. in our parish who's an ACC priest?
Colorado the other way.
Colorado the other way. So, you know, so we have a history in the continuum of erratic behavior and talking a good game, and then when it comes down to it, erratic bishops acting erratically. I would hope that we would quit being isolationists, but we have a hard time working together. The Affirmation of St. Louis actually tells us, if you just read it and take it on its face value,
not how it's been developed.
Not how it's been developed, not how one particular person interprets
Be
what
Justice
to say.
Clarence Thomas and say, I'm doing originalism here.
Right, what's the original say? Okay, and you go. And that's what you do, but they don't. They always find, and it just irritates me to no end, they always find some way to twist it. And I just want to scream.
Well,
now GAFCON can work, and it should be a realignment. The See of Canterbury is vacant and will remain vacant until they elect an Orthodox traditional bishop, which will never happen as long as the committee that selects the Archbishop of Canterbury is not made up of Christians. Now, right now you have Muslims, atheists, Hindus, all that making up, and secularists choosing the Royal Commission.
Maybe if like Nigel Farage was prime minister and all the political apparatus was weaponized in a different direction to pick someone like one of those flying bishops they have over there.
Can it work that way, or is Britain so far gone? I mean, look at what you see in Britain now. There's more Sharia court laws Sharia courts, in Britain than the rest of Europe combined.
It also looks like Nigel's about to be the next prime minister.
I would hope so.
Very different after that.
Yeah, is he a Donald Trump?
He's the closest thing they
got.
The
closest thing they got. Maybe that's the closest thing they'll ever have. And the reason I'm saying Donald Trump, somebody's going to turn everything on his head and upset the establishment. And look what you see now.
He did Brexit.
He did Brexit.
Nigel did Brexit.
He did Brexit. So hopefully he does. Hopefully he will. Maybe the British people are finally fed up with the wokeism and the Islamization of their country, that they will fight back. Are they the same stuff of their grandfathers who fought World War II? Probably not, because we aren't in America. We look at what we tolerate, that our grandfathers would not have tolerated, and we tolerate it. Everything, I don't know, the realignment, I hope it works. I know there's provinces in South Asia, like Southeast Asia, New Guinea, Malaysia, and all that are less than 20, maybe 25 years old, growing by leaps and bounds. They're traditional, they're Orthodox, and they're, yes, they're slightly different in their liturgical style because of their culture. No big deal. But that's where it's going to be, not in the West. We have compromised the faith so much. And now we have not all, some of the African bishops willing, probably out of Kenya, willing to compromise the faith. So it might be those African bishops and those Asian bishops are going to be the ones that get the Anglican communion back on the right track, because you can't rely on some of the African bishops, and you definitely can't rely on any of the Western bishops.
I think the question is, one, is something major happening?
Yes.
And then two, if yes, do we want to be a part of this? Well, and examining that, it just looks to me like you have the Jerusalem Declaration that goes up to here that says to be a part of us, you have to, these 14 points to get you up to here. And we already go up to here, affirming everything we have from the Affirmation of St. Louis. So the question, is it worthwhile to us to reach out to these millions and millions of people represented by these bishops in what's happening in GAFCON and say we want to be a partner of that, or not?
Why not? Why can't we? We've been isolationist for almost 50 years? What has it gotten us?
It would put us in a spot of being the Anglo-Catholic witness in GAFCON in North America. So my understanding is you already have places that are provinces geographically that have partner jurisdictions that are not under the authority whatsoever of the geographical province. So in the UK, they have what they call it AME, but it was
EMEA here.
EMEA here. But it's already part of GAFCON and not under the authority of any other body in the UK, okay? So conceptually, we could be we being the Anglican province of Christ the King, a partner jurisdiction of GAFCON without having to have anything to do with the ACNA. That's intriguing.
It is intriguing.
And it's consistent with our formularies.
Well, but the issue is, do our bishops have the personality to do it. That's the linchpin right there, our bishops. Are they going to do what is right? Are they going to do what they've always done? That's the linchpin. We can't even get them to work with each other. I mean, what's the difference between the ACC, the APA, APEC, and all the other jurisdictions out there? Our canons are almost identical.
The only thing
our liturgies are identical, almost identical. We all use the same prayer book.
I see one thing, Father, that jumps out at me is our canons would theoretically, depending on the individual and then our bishops discerning that, allow for recognition of orders from other apostolic jurisdictions that the ACC would not.
Oh, no.
For instance, that's where they get all that conditional reordination stuff from.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas we don't require that per se. Whereas over there, it's per se.
Yeah. Well, here, when I came here from the Reformed Episcopal Church, Bishop Upham, okay, what is your apostolic lineage?
He looked at your individual orders.
Right. He looked at my orders. And when he saw the man who consecrated him a bishop is the same man who consecrated my bishop, done. There was no more talk about it. So there's no conditional reordination like the APA did, Father Sweeney, just because he came from the ACNA. I mean, he was sound, but so that's that silliness I'm talking about. We're the one true church. We take Rome to task about that.
I guess that would be the thinking of why not to be part of GAFCON would be to say they're not pure enough. Yeah,
well, that could come out. That could come out because that was part of the arguments that the archbishops back in the early 2000s had when that ACNA came out. They're not pure enough. They got this, they got that. We can't work with them. Then quietly behind the scenes, they got rebuffed by the ACNA when they formed. Because I had a bishop from the ACNA tell me that probably about 2015, 2017 or so, that Archbishop Haverland and others quietly behind the scenes approached the ACNA, and they got rebuffed because, why is the ACNA? Do they want a whole bunch of Anglo-Catholics coming in? They had their own problems with the Anglo-Catholics they had. There was no women's ordination, no nothing. Do they want to bring in another 3 or 4 jurisdictions that are just as non-women's ordination affirming and might tilt the balance away? So Duncan and Beach and all them who were pro-women's ordination were like, no, we don't need you.
Here's what the Jerusalem Declaration would say as it applies to us. They would say the 1662 is the standard. Well, we have the 1662 as it's developed in the 1928. It's just that and something.
Yeah, it's just an Americanized 1662.
They say we require you to recognize 4 councils. Well, we recognize the 4 councils, they say.
Yeah.
We just recognize 3 more. They say you got to hold to these 2 sacraments. We already hold to those 2 sacraments. We just have some more.
The only thing would be if our bishop said they don't go far enough. So and they'll find a reason. I'm not saying we shouldn't be, but the bishops will search for a reason not to do it. That's their modus operandi.
But I'm not sure if that's what APEC looks like now. Like if you go to some parishes in APEC, in our diocese,
oh yeah,
they look like the Anglican Communion, and that's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
That's the future.
That is the future. That's here in the Eastern Diocese. What's the Western Diocese look like? What's the mind of the Western bishops? Are they going to want to at least go and listen? Is the G, whatever number they're at now, 1, 2? Okay, are they going to go? Who's going to go and represent the ACNA? I mean, their archbishop's under investigation.
That's a different question.
Oh, I know. So
no opinion there.
No opinion. No opinion. So I'm saying that who's going to go and listen? Are they going to go and listen? Or maybe they'll send somebody like Bishop Fitzwater or Bishop Sutton will go.
Sutton.
I think that's probably the best way to go. Or maybe pull, Foley Beach out of retirement and send him. I don't know.
He's got deep GAFCON connections.
He does. So that he and Bishop Sutton have deep GAFCON connections. So that could work. It should work. We should, come together. But what has always kept everything splintered within the Anglican Communion is not so much our theology, which comes in women ordination, yes, and it's kept us split from like the Episcopal Church because of the women's ordination, the homosexuality, the transgenderism, and on and all the other isms the Episcopal Church embraces. But what has kept the continuing churches? We're the one pure church, and that's a disgusting thing to say. It's like listening to the Orthodox say that about everybody in the West, Roman Catholics about everybody else in the West. And we get mad at the Roman Catholics, yet here we are doing it ourselves.
Father, this, in just my humble opinion, just my 2 cents, what an opportunity for an Anglo-Catholic witness to the Anglican Communion this could be.
Yeah.
Uniquely for the Anglican province of Christ the King to fill this void as a partner jurisdiction. Like we have a moment where the ground is shifting beneath our feet, and this new thing of the global Anglican Communion that's in formation is saying we are looking for everybody that is an Orthodox Anglican body, and that we already meet every prerequisite they have to be considered one of their partners.
I think if we sent bishops or the archbishops or whatever, they went to observe and look, they would be received with open arms by the archbishops of GAFCON. They would be received as brothers in Christ. Now, when I went to the G4 down in Orlando back in 2023, the archbishop, go down there and observe. I was supposed to go with Bishop Jones. Bishop Jones had an emergency. He couldn't go, so I went down just to observe. The pushback the archbishop got just having me down there as an unofficial observer.
That's a little different though, Father. Like that's a different body that has a history that goes back to Archbishop Morse of, a slightly different vision within North America. But what we have here would be recognition of something that's already baked into our formularies of saying we recognize Orthodox bodies around the world, and we want them to recognize us too.
Yeah.
And for almost 50 years, that recognition has not been reciprocated, but we might be at a moment where that could be.
That could be, and we should be. But what I'm trying to say is that we're all Orthodox in the continuum, and they can't even work together in the continuum.
Well, I spent almost 50 years of that.
50 years of that. How, as parts of the continuum, going to act if, let's say, just it's not happening, just bubblegum shooting this out. Let's say Archbishop Schultz goes to GAFCON, or his representative goes to GAFCON. What would be the fallout within the APEC? What would be fallout in the continuing church? What would happen?
I have no idea.
I had no idea either. But there would be people that would stand up and want to throw a wrench in the matter because they're not pure enough. That's what we have to get over. And it's a hard thing for the continuum to get over because it's been baked into our identity for 50 years.
But what an opportunity.
It is a great opportunity.
An Anglo-Catholic witness to
the
world.
It is a great opportunity. I mean, we are a hidden treasure in the United States. And this parish has been in Huntsville for almost 50 years. And there's still people downtown who, when they see me, they think I'm a priest at St. Mary's.
Well, part of the Anglican history is this connection to a worldwide communion that really has gone off the rails in the last 50 years or so.
Yeah.
But if we have the majority or even a large portion of that Anglican communion that is now reforming those global bonds in an Orthodox way that stretches from Sydney, Australia, to Huntsville, Alabama, to Nigeria,
Croatia,
to Uganda, Rwanda.
They're in Croatia, everywhere.
That's attractive, and that's part of the Anglican experience, is being connected to a body that's larger than this worldwide, that goes back to a historic see and has apostolic succession going all the way back. Like that's part of the Anglican ethos. And in the continuing world, we've kind of lost that international connection to other brother jurisdictions that in my mind are completely sound, such as Nigeria. That they might have certain practices they do that we don't abide by, and we have our theological reasons for that. And being a partner jurisdiction allows us to maintain complete autonomy.
Oh yeah.
We'd be able to maintain every Anglo-Catholic practice that is important to us, which includes not having female deacons.
Yeah.
No one would pressure us. It would just be an opportunity to be connected to the world and provide an Anglo-Catholic witness to what is becoming the future of Anglicanism in the 21st century.
Yeah, it could be. It's something we should maybe look at and think about. Then we'd also use the ACNA as an example. How has it worked? How has it happened? Do our bishops need to be more forceful in presenting that's not historic Christianity, this is whatever? It's an opportunity. How it's going to fall out, that's up to God and how our bishops act and react. It's going to happen in March. And it's happening at the same time they're so-called installing the laywoman as the Archbishop of Canterbury.
I think the question really is, will the future of Anglicanism be decided at a synod in Georgia or at a synod in Nigeria in March?
Oh.
And I submit to you it's the latter.
Oh, yeah, in March. Yeah, that's sure. The one in Nigeria, because the one in Athens, Georgia, or wherever else they hold their synod for the G2, G1, you got 5, 6, 10,000 people in America. And then you go to Nigeria, and you got one diocese bigger than, you got, and then the church in Nigeria is bigger than the entire Anglican parts of the West. You're talking about England, Canada, America. There's more Nigerian Anglicans than there are Western
And
Anglicans.
they still go to church every Sunday.
And they still go to church every Sunday. Some of them will walk for hours to get to church. And they will walk even knowing they could be ambushed and killed by Muslims or by
They have
tribesmen.
the real threat of religious violence in their country too.
Just look at it. They have the real threat. They're experiencing it, and the church is still growing, and they're still more faithful than us Westerners who are nice. Like you used to say in the Marine Corps about the folks in the rear, fat, dumb, and happy, because they don't know what's going on. They're just sitting around and they're fat. That's us in the West. We're fat, dumb, and happy. We think we're all have all this anxiety over these little small issues that we blow up to be huge issues. And then we look at our brothers and sisters in Africa, and you're looking at a priest standing in a mass grave of 30, 40 people, crying out to the Lord and crying out to the West and to the church in the West and to the American government. How long? Just like the saints under the altar and the throne in Revelations, crying out to Christ, to God, how much longer, O Lord, how much longer? So how much longer? These people, these Christians in Africa and in Asia have a faith that we can learn, that we have lost. And we think it's hard when we don't, it's too hot in the church. It's too, that's our complaints. No, we don't like the carpet. We don't like this. It's just this aesthetics. But you see what's going on. This is a poignant picture I saw in the Philippines after a cyclone went through, what we call a hurricane here. The church was flooded, and the church was packed with Filipinos standing in knee-deep water because it was Sunday to worship. They're standing there in knee-deep water. And I knew one of the bishops from Mindanao who would say that some people would walk 4 hours, 5 hours to get to Mass. Here, they complain about having to drive from Owens Crossroads. Drive from somewhere. You hear the complaints. These people walked hours, stood in knee-deep, brackish, stinking water to worship Jesus. That's the faith that I hope one day, if not in my lifetime, my children's lifetime, comes back to America. We don't see it, whether it's Roman, Anglican, or any of the Protestant groups. You're not going to see it. When they tried to shut churches down overseas, especially in these Nigeria, the bishops just looked at them. They didn't have the, quote, separation of church and state that we do. The bishops just looked at them and went on about their business and didn't shut it down. And the government didn't really try because they didn't want to have an uprising. Here, we all took tail and run when the government tells us what to do. We have a different faith here that is that's very effeminate.
We need to look to Nigeria.
We need to look to Nigeria to be able to do it. Okay? So that was a great talk.
That's great, Father.
We'll
Let's
talk
do it again
again
next week.
All right.